Good morning, everyone. It is April 27th. It's a Tuesday. This is Nadex Morning Analysis. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple, Mr. Brian Caprice. Before Brian and I get into hot spots to be looking at today in the markets, or to potentially be looking at, I do need to quickly share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk, and that this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. All right, so here's what we're going to be looking at today. There are some exciting things going on in the markets. First up at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, consumer confidence comes out. It could potentially move equities markets. So we just got to be aware. Consumer confidence is coming out 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, going on today, OPEC. We mentioned it yesterday, but OPEC moved their meeting up from yesterday to today. It is a virtual meeting. We will be hearing from OPEC on what they plan on doing with their policy. So we're going to talk about oil. We're going to talk about oil, and you're going to have to keep an eye on what OPEC has to say. And then we're also going to talk about, I love this part, is sometimes we talk about, there is some education here beyond just looking at charts. It's also understanding the markets. Tonight, a number coming out in Australia. It's at 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Australia is reporting their inflation rate. So that has the potential to move some currency pairs, either the Aussie dollar, US dollar, or the Aussie dollar, Japanese yen. Knowing that there's this report coming out tonight, it's one of those things where if, trading doesn't stop. It's not just during the day in the US. There are some opportunities, and because Australia is just in the evening in US time, it might be an opportunity to potentially look at something that you don't normally or traditionally look at before you go to sleep. There's an opportunity, a potential opportunity there. It's not one where you got to get up in the middle of the night necessarily and be looking, say, at European hours. So with that, Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you, and let's talk a little bit about oil and then maybe a setup for this evening. And then I don't want anyone to forget. In fact, I'm going to drop this into the chat. Brian is going to be doing a full-blown market analysis. It's 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. In fact, I'm going to drop in the registration. If you don't join every Tuesday, a full-blown hour across all of the markets. So certainly something that you can join in later this afternoon instead of these quick little 10, 15-minute sessions we do in the morning. So Brian, now I am going to flip it over to you.
Yeah, it's okay. I was good. I was like, I had to fight a sneeze off. Like the allergies are like going crazy lately. The car is green. I'm like, oh God, don't sneeze. Don't sneeze. We're live. Don't sneeze. So I was like, man, it was there. I think I fought it back though. I think we're good. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of news this morning actually. We have consumer confidence at 10, which definitely is going to probably drive the markets today. They actually revised it a little bit higher. I believe yesterday they said 112, not 113. So it looks like they're jacking the forecast higher and higher. Kind of interesting that they do that a day before. Again, like this, by raising it higher, there's more of a chance for a disappointment. Being at 10 o'clock, it also gives the potential for a reversal in the overall indices. Later on today, obviously, we have our hour-long session, and we'll do a much, much bigger breakdown, both of the CAD, Macklin speaking, as well as the CPI. But oil is the big thing that we need to mention today. This is a kind of we heard it a little bit earlier, and it's about, I guess this was posted about 41 minutes ago, but OPEC Plus, and again, if you don't know what OPEC Plus is, make sure you tune in next week. I'll go over it more. But OPEC Plus is basically the regular OPEC members, and then basically Russia is the driving force behind the plus aspect of it. They're meeting today. They moved it one day forward. If you attended yesterday, you heard us talk about how this Wednesday was going to be interesting because we had our oil inventory report. but we had OPEC meeting as well. And again, OPEC tends to take the thunder out of that one real quick. But with them moving this forward, it does kind of provide a little bit more interesting of a story. A lot of times we see a lot of movement in the European session before the oil inventory report. Sometimes not, and then we have big movement with the oil inventory report. With OPEC meeting today, there's going to be some headlines. And if you remember last time, they talked about production cuts. Click over this tab here. They talked about how earlier this month, a group agreed to bring 2.1 million barrels per day back to the market over the May through July period, easing the cuts to 5.8 million. So remember, they've been cutting, but they've been chopping at the bit, talking about how recovery looks great. Where do we go with this? And again, oil's in a very interesting position right now. So I would assume, and again, this is just an assumption, I don't have a crystal ball, with oil being at $60, greed is just absolutely gigantic in their eyes right now. When it's at $40, there's, it's like, production cuts, we're not making a lot off each barrel anyway. But now that we see great U.S. data, great Chinese data, Powell saying we're better than expected, our recovery is better than expected. Oil's up at $62. It makes sense. But as you can see from where we were yesterday, we talked about the 60-50 level. This literally bounced right after we met yesterday morning. It bounced all the way back up to the 62.50, and that was the level we mentioned as being a turnaround point. It's hit it twice now and kind of pushed across. And again, I think this is anticipation of, again, oil inventory as well as OPEC. But now that OPEC's meeting, I don't see them saying, hey, you know what? Never mind, we're not doing the production cuts. We don't want to make extra money. I really highly doubt that's going to be the case. They may even talk about maybe releasing a little bit more because oil prices have stabilized. They're above 60, which they love. If they come in with something like that, I think a lot of the thunder will be taken away from tomorrow's oil inventory report. So is it a trade right now? I think we got to start looking at areas to be able to get short. Again, the 62.50 level is a level that's been tested before. It's kind of been chunked through a little bit. So is it the cleanest of levels? No, not necessarily. I think if we look to the left here a little bit more, again, remember, this is what we would call a racetrack. It's a very, very fast emotional push to the downside. And we have another level up here where we have some sellers kind of kicking in at 63.70. So yeah, what makes it interesting is because, again, this 62.50 psychological level, it's right at the 50 mark. It's hit there. The U.S. traders coming online. OPEC is speaking today. Most likely it has to do with production cuts, whether they're going to put more on or less. If they start releasing that, again, that would tend to drive oil back to the downside. If they say they're going to hold off, that would make oil burst out to the top side. So I would say today, one way or the other, there's multiple ways to play this. You can play a breakout through the top side, looking for 63.70 as a target. And again, if we spike up today, that gives us a potential to roll over tomorrow for the oil inventory report. If they say, hey, listen, we're going to accelerate the amount that we're putting back on the market, that would also lead us to drop back to the downside, in which case we got to be looking, and again, this level, we hit it yesterday, the 60.72 range, right? So a lot of different things can happen with oil, depending on what your strategies are. You may even want to play a breakout strategy. I know Dan has talked about kind of the strangle aspect where we're talking about it being, staying within a range. There's another strategy where we talk about it going out of the range. And that's another possible play for it today. Because like I said, when OPEC goes early and it's being led by Russia, there's bound to be a headline out of it somewhere here. So I would expect this oil to be a pretty decent mover today.
Yep. And I just wanted to drop something over here on the Nadex platform, and it depends how you want to play it. I'm just looking at the call spreads. If you're not familiar, these are the daily call spreads. Oil does stop trading 2:30 Eastern in the U.S. And we do have these call spreads that give you these ranges where you can take a directional play. Excuse me. Unlike a knockout, it goes through the floor or ceiling. You're not out of the trade. But oil has been making more than $1 move. So how could you potentially do this? I mean, we're up in this range. If you thought it were going to go lower in a very limited risk reward way, you could, take a short position in a call spread, looking for it to really break down if they're going to pull these curbs out. The other way, if you think it's going to be going higher, and you could potentially even consider doing both of these. This is This is buying a strangle. This is the upper level. Instead of looking for it to go lower, you can look at it to potentially go higher. You buy this one. Now, what could you do? I mean, when we talk about strangles or looking for a breakout, if you bought one of these and you're risking 37 and it were to actually punch higher and break out, you would profit. If it were going to go lower and you sold this one, it cost you $40. So if you actually did both, you were looking for a big breakout. You could sell this one at 40, buy another one. I mean, it's not a trade recommendation. Buy another one where your risk is 34, so you're in for $74. Now you've got to profit 74 on one of these trades. Is the goal? Now you're paying a premium. You're paying $74. But if it were to make a large move and you were to make more than $74 on either, because you can only win on one of them, if it were to go higher enough, you would profit on this trade and cover your losses from the other. If it were to go down enough on the other one, and I got to take a look, you could profit on this one and hopefully cover your losses from the other one. This is just looking for a big move. That is a big move strategy. Now, if you just thought we're going to go one way or the other, call spreads could be interesting. Of course, the other way to play it would simply just be in the binary options, and which, if you're not familiar with more advanced strategies, that might be the cleaner way to play it. Is just the yes or no on the binary side. Is it going to go higher or is it going to go lower at the end? So things to think about, but oil with OPEC, surprise, they're doing it today, is something to be looking at. Expect to potentially see some volatility in oil. Brian, you want to do the setup for just talk about, hey, tonight, Australia.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I would say between the two, obviously with the Australian data, we mention every week how great of a news release it is. There's no U.S. trader involved. You tend to get good movement. The strike differentials are rather small. Right now, there's not really necessarily anything set up that I'm in love with for the Aussie dollar, but the Aussie yen is also another currency pair. With the Aussie, it includes the yen, which is also very weak right now, so it's a good counter currency to play against. We had a level here, and again, we saw a very large bit of movement off of it. And you can see we chopped back through. We've come up and tested that level. And this is kind of what I'm looking at right now. Is we talked yesterday about how we had an area of selling. We wanted it to go higher, and it did, right? But there's this area right here that I think we needed to talk about and discuss, really pushing back down into this 83.77 range. It was the last time we really had any basing and a decent pop higher. The way that it's basing right now, it is high. It is, as you can see, we're close to the pink area up top. I am more thinking short in this situation. Now, again, the Aussie has had pretty good data lately, and again, it will reflect it there, but I think that this could give us the potential for somewhat of a rollover tomorrow. And the way to look at it tonight, again, if you're unable to attend the midday session, watch the recording, we'll break into it more, but we really need to see where we've pushed. Right now, it looks like it's setting up in more of a bearish position. I'm kind of hoping at this point we can push higher. I'd like to get up to this 84.65. It's sitting about 40 pips from that level right now. It could absolutely get up there. It can travel 40 pips in one U.S. session. So it's kind of like if we hold and maintain here, then looking for a drop. Otherwise, I'm going to get my pom-poms out, and I want this to go higher because I'd like to get it short from up top. I think either of those two are good. But if we do run back down into this level here a bit lower, if we do come over and get down to here, this 83.77, it's also flipping it around. It's much lower in the curve. It's dropping 40 down. Then we'd be looking for a long opportunity. And again, the reason we're talking about where it's going to be, right, is because you can get into this beforehand. If we go up, we're looking for a short, right? If we're looking for this to come down into this level right here, then we're looking for a potential long entry before the news release today, right? And again, unlike traditional options that are like crazily stacked with volatility right before and much harder to play beforehand, Nadex does a pretty good job of not. I mean, they don't get too crazy beforehand, particularly at the nighttime releases, because the price of Nadex contracts is based off volatility. They're pulling volatility from the U.S. market. U.S. market's not open, so the volatility is not necessarily there. So good opportunity there at night. So if we go sideways, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. But down or up, 84.65, I think we get short tonight. 83.77, I think that's an area where, again, buyers have stepped in. We go long, and maybe it's able to push its way all the way down to the 83.53, like that level even more for a long tonight.
So, thanks, Brian. And by the way, I'd love to see you pull out your pom-poms and cheer.
They're Nadex blue. Don't worry, Todd. Nadex blue.
If it doesn't do what we were looking for, I'm going to blame you for not cheering loud enough.
Yeah.
It's like I tell my sons, hey, you guys really want the Blackhawks to win. They didn't win. You clearly didn't cheer hard enough. It's all your fault.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, Brian's going to be doing a full-blown session again in 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. I dropped the link in. If you haven't registered, come and catch the full-blown analysis. We've talked about the boot camp that is next Tuesday. Brian will be doing a session on trading around news announcements, specifically around news announcements. So if, even though we do a lot of basics at those boot camps because we've got thousands of new customers here. So even though you might not be interested in, say, the basics sessions, although they're always a good review, please register and you'll get the links and have the opportunity then to catch, you can either join Brian live when his session runs, or you can certainly catch it. We do send out the links to the recordings to everyone who registers. Questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Questions for Brian, support@keeptradingsimple.com. And again, consumer confidence, 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. We've got OPEC meeting today. Keep an eye on that. And this evening, 9:30 p.m., Australian inflation rates. Take a look for potential trade setups there. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Good luck in the markets. Hopefully, we'll catch you again midday and then again tomorrow.